excited for today's meetup. Sorry, my video is a little bit bad right now. We are, in a temporary housing situation, looking for something more permanent. So video is not going to be as great, but you guys aren't here to see me anyway. Just really quickly, let's introduce our guest. First of all, first thing I want to say is he's got a great book out that I have been, reading over and over again for the last couple of weeks. I think it's called Multifamily Investors That Dominate. Is that right, Beau? Did I get the title right?
Yeah, man. There you go.
Yep. I've got the Kindle version. I've got the audio version, and we just hired fairly recently somebody to help our acquisitions team. I mailed her a copy of the book too. That's I like it so much that I'm giving it to people. So definitely check the book out. All right, it's a solid read about becoming an elite investor. That's partially what I hope to talk about today. But really quick, just to introduce Beau. Beau's been in the commercial real estate business in Florida since 1999. Has a bachelor's in marketing, master's in science from the University of Florida. I won't hold that against him. I've hated Florida ever since they stole Urban Meyer from Utah. So yeah, I'm a Utah grad, but
we don't want them anymore, so it's all good.
So I mean, keep my Utah attire really close at most times, but anyway, he's also a CCIM, which is huge in the in the commercial real estate field. A lot of good stuff. I think most of you guys have been able to read the full bio on the event page. But without further ado, Beau, welcome.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on there. I'm excited about this. I always like these little evenings get together, especially when it's kind of a controlled number of people, and we can have some Q&A or as much Q&A as we can.
Yeah, that's perfect. And what we plan on doing is, we'll try to keep the conversation between the two of us for about 40 minutes. And we'll open it up to the rest of the field. But Beau, if you would please, can you give us an intro to who you are and how you got to where you're at?
Sure. I'm a multifamily broker. I've been in brokerage for about 21 years now. I'm actually based in Gainesville, Florida, which is sort of north central Florida. I cover the northern half of Florida. I only do any market rate and student housing. I don't really do much affordable housing. I do anything over 10 units, but most of what I do is between 20 and 150. I got a master's degree in real estate from UF, a marketing degree here. I worked for Trammell Crow Residential, starting off my career in the late 90s. They were the largest apartment developer in the country. I was on site doing leasing and management from the ground floor, learned the properties that way. Then went and worked with a top developer, at least in this region. They did office, retail, industrial, and multifamily. I did the brokerage and management of the portfolio. And then in the later years, I did a lot of the acquisitions. And then in 2000, I want to say 10, I acquired a Coldwell Banker and a Coldwell Banker commercial franchise. I only brokered multifamily the entire time, had about 97 agents. I had 3 partners who ran the business, thankfully. So all I could do was broker multifamily assets. Sold my share back to them in 2020 and just started my own little boutique multifamily brokerage firm in January. And here I am.
Nice. Now, talk a little bit about your book here. So first of all, I want to ask the question, what inspired you to write a book?
Man, I've had a commercial real estate coach for almost a decade. Mm-hmm. And which I highly encourage for investors as well, to have a coach, a mentor, someone preferably that you're actually like paying money to or dues to, or someone who has, sort of a broader perspective and can see the bigger picture. And he's been trying to get me to write this book for several years. And I've been coming up with all kinds of excuses, why I don't have the time and so forth. But I finally decided, I had seen so many, phenomenal investors in my life that I've been following for many, many years and been able to transact with many of them. And I've also seen a lot of train wrecks, way more train wrecks than phenomenal investors. And I decided, a lot of these people are not train wrecks on purpose. They don't understand how the system works and how the world works. They don't understand how deals should be coming to you, you not trying to find deals. If you're trying to find deals, you're doing it wrong. And so I kind of created this idea where I wanted to create a book where it was kind of an inside look from a broker's perspective on, how the most elite investors in the world transact, right? Because none of you will ever be able to see what I see, because you can't just call an elite investor and say, hey, I want to be like you, tell me all your tricks, right? Only brokers and some lenders get to see how these guys transact, how they built their team, all the assets they own, how they bought them, what they paid for them, what their pain points are, how much they'll pay on price, all kinds of stuff, right? And so I just decided, all right, and I think it was July 2020, I just sat down, I started writing, and I wrote it in 60 to 90 days. It was pretty easy. The horrible part is actually getting it to Amazon and Audible and Kindle and all that. It is a hellacious process. If any of you have ever written a book, don't ever self-publish. Just write it and hire one company to do it all, because it's extremely painful to deal with Amazon.
Yeah.
I love Amazon, by the way, just from a vendor standpoint, horrible.
Yeah, I've done a lot of transactions. I'm giving Amazon a lot of money, and once again, really apologize. Usually the light's not an issue in here, but I've got the window right there, no shades, and it's really bugging me. But anyway, that said, let's talk a little bit about the elite investor. I mean, don't give away all the secrets for your books. I definitely want people to, to go out and purchase it, because it's got a lot of valuable information. But what would you say is the defining characteristic between the elite investor and a regular investor?
For the elite investor, first of all, it's a long history, a long career of doing a whole bunch more transactions than anybody else. Most of the elite guys that I know are doing between 8 and 12 deals a year, right? And it's just constant, repetitive, and they've been doing it for 10 to 20 years plus. And they never have to go out and seek investments. They're being flooded with deals by brokers. So if some of you have not followed me on YouTube or, subscribed to any of my stuff, I did a study, and this is a fact on anywhere in the country. I did a study in my markets from January of 15 to December of 19. It was a 5-year period where I studied 31% of every transaction over 10 units in my markets, which is the northern half of Florida. And I discovered that 93% of every closing is done by a broker. Now, it's not because brokers are, gods or they're amazing people. It's just because anyone who owns apartment complexes over 10, 20, especially 50 units, these are pretty sophisticated folks. They know they can hire a broker and get 12 offers in 10 days and bid people up and get big prices. So why would they entertain any offer off of some random guy off the street and sell to them for less than market rate? It doesn't make any sense. So the bigger the asset, the more likely it is the broker is doing it. Now, it's 93% in the northern half of Florida. Maybe it's 80% in New York, or 70% in California, and 97%, in the southern half of Florida, whatever it is. The whole point of the book is the following. It's that you can be a guy who tries to do off-market deals where you literally call the person directly, and maybe the husband or the wife died who did the real estate, and you caught them at the exact moment in their life where they're like, yeah, I'll sell to you without hiring a broker. I just want to get rid of this. And you may do that transaction, right? And so if you spent your whole life trying to find the off-market deal where you were direct to seller and you wrote the perfect letter or you called them at the perfect time, while you're trying to find that one transaction that you do once every year, every couple of years, I transact with investors, many of them who are doing 6, 8, 10 deals in the time it takes you to find that one. And the most elite, what they've done is they've gotten very, very good at making brokers fall in love with them, salivate over wanting to do a deal with them. And so every day when they come in their office and they pull up their computer and they pull up their voicemails, they're flooded with deals to sift through, okay? While most everyone else is trying to make phone calls to sellers. They're trying to look at LoopNet. They're, doing mailings. They're driving by properties and trying to find the sellers and all this stuff, right? These guys are just sifting through tons and tons of deals to find the right ones. And the deals they're sifting through have not even hit the market yet, right? Elite investors are the ones who are getting the calls. As soon as the broker gets a call from a seller, and the seller's like, hey, Beau, we're thinking about listing our property. Want you to do a BOV on it. As soon as I hang up on that phone, before I've even done a BOV, before I even have a signed listing agreement, I already know 10 guys who want that deal, and they're going to close on it, and they're going to pay the right price, and they're going to bring the right terms, and they're going to do it very, very quickly, and they're going to make me look good, and they're going to make the seller smile. And so I call those 10 guys 3 weeks before I've even brought it to market, because it's going to take me 3 weeks to build the marketing package, to put together a Dropbox with the floor plans and the survey and the title and all the things I need from the seller. But meanwhile, the buyers, the most elite guys, they're already doing rent comps. They're talking to their contractor about what it's going to cost. They're driving by the outside. They're not getting out and walking around or talking to any staff or employees. They're already calling up their bank to talk about terms. They're doing all this. And so that's why within a week of every listing that comes to market, there's 15 offers. It's because these folks have already gotten a heads up. So everyone on this call, your goal is to get those calls eventually, to be on the horn, to get those calls from every broker that exists in every market you cover. Not just the top 10 or 20% of the biggest hitter brokers, it's every broker, right? So in the northern half of Florida, there's roughly 60 multifamily brokers who do this full-time on a regular basis, right? And most of them do nothing but multifamily. Some of them do office, some of them do retail, and then they occasionally do a multifamily deal. Your goal is you want to have constant contact and lots of networking with every broker in the market, even the ones you don't like, even the ones who maybe do only 1 or 2 deals a year, even the ones that call you constantly and are always annoying you, even the ones that put out terrible marketing packages, even the ones that are cocky bastards. All you want is you want this giant funnel so that you see every deal. All this is a statistics game. The most elite investors aren't all that smarter than you. They aren't better than you. They aren't more phenomenal at underwriting or managing or contracting. I promise you, I could teach my 16-year-old how to underwrite a $20 million apartment complex. It ain't that hard. The hard part is getting deals to come to you. And the only thing different between you and the most elite is that they're seeing every single deal that comes to market. And statistically speaking, what happens is the more deals you see, the more deals you get to go after, the more deals you have a chance at buying. That's the big difference. And these guys have gotten good at befriending brokers and lenders who are excellent referral sources and property managers to bring them deals.
Yeah, that's one thing. One thing that I thought was that you noted in your book, at least, was the fact that the elite investors also aren't the type that are basically retrading properties after you get under contract. They're not asking for the credits. They're also extremely easy to work with. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, the book is about 2 things. It's literally a step-by-step organized process on how you make every broker in the market fall in love with you, salivate over you. I go through everything. And the other part is how you build a reputation. And the reputation, now we've heard about reputation in all kinds of businesses, right? That's a boring thing to say. But in this business, it is so insanely important. It's not even funny. And the problem is that most people who have a bad reputation don't know they have a bad reputation, right? Because no broker or no seller is going to call Jeff after a transaction and be like, yo, Jeff, so the reason you haven't seen another listing from me in the last 8 months is because you suck, right? The way you treated that property was ridiculous. The way you talked to that seller was unbelievable. The way you retraded the price 3 days before closing was incredible. The way you you tried to, save money on this, or the way you talked in front of the property manager during the tour, all kinds of stuff, right? From little to big. I mean, there's even just little subtleties that investors do that diminish their reputation. And you have to understand, you guys are in the most competitive business on the planet. And you have to be way more of a salesperson than I do. I'm only competing against 59 other brokers in my market, and I smash most of them. You're competing against tens of thousands of investors from all over the world. Okay. It's the majority are US, but there's a bunch of people from Israel, Russia, India, China, and did I already say Israelis? Yes. Israelis are big investors as well, and Indians. Just tremendous investors, right? So there's everything that goes into your reputation is a huge effect on how many deals you see. So what happens in a transaction is, I know, I mean, we use retrading a lot because that's usually the biggest sin that you could possibly go through. But but there's other things, we can go through a whole list of them. But once that happens, brokers and sellers talk a lot. It's a very, very small world in this investment world. In the entire northern half of Florida, and Florida is arguably one of the top 3 states in the country for multifamily, there's only 403 investors in the entire world that own everything over 100 units. And there's only 996 that own everything over 10 units. Think about that. Only 996. That's all that's in my database. I know every single one of these people. I'm saved in their cell phone. They're saved in mine. And when I'm doing a deal with Mauricio, and he was phenomenal to deal with, and Mauricio powered through and closed on a deal, or, talked good about the property, or showed respect, all these, we can go through a whole bunch of a big list. The next, and I write a recommendation for him, he's going to bid on another listing. That broker sees I wrote a recommendation. That broker probably knows me. So he calls me up. Hey, Beau, Mauricio just used you as a letter of recommendation on a deal you did 3 months ago over in Jacksonville. How was it for real? Oh, well, listen, here's what happened during the transaction. The seller was a real prick. Something came up that was actually his fault, but Mauricio was like, you know what? I'm a closer. Like, I don't care about this little $50,000 issue on a $10 million deal. Like, but we need to close on this, right? So I tell him that. And by the way, at my next, social event with a bunch of other brokers, I'm telling the Mauricio story. And when I talked to the 7 other buyers who turned in offers, who didn't win the deal, who called me back after the closing, and they're like, hey, who closed on that? I'm like, this dude Mauricio, and here's what happened. This dude's a closer, right? We all do it. Everyone on this phone, we talk about other people and how they treated you or how they did things or whatever the case may be. It's no different in business. And it's a very small world, and we all talk. And so the most elite guys over a 10, 15, 20-year period are building this incredible reputation bank account so that when they turn in offers, everyone already knows them. Like, I already know that buyer. The seller already knows this buyer. The seller's property manager, who might have managed assets for him in the past, or who have dealt with him in the past, maybe when they were buying things from him. Like, people just know these guys because they're so cordial and they're so nice and they're just fun to deal with. So not only do they close on transactions and they close in a gentleman or gentlewoman-like manner, right? But they're likable. The biggest component they can possess is empathy. It's the number one thing I see missing in all transactions is empathy, is just putting on your seller hat in every way. When the letter of intent comes over and they redline your letter of intent, don't be a dick and like get all mad and upset and be like, I can't believe you redlined that. That's ridiculous. I always had that clause in there. No one in the history of the world has ever redlined that clause right there, right? Well, listen, they're redlining it for a reason. Put your seller hat on. Think for a minute. Let's walk through this. Let's get rid of the ego and try to figure out how we can not only get this deal to contract, but let's figure out how to make the seller fall in love with me. That's what it's all about. Because this is the butterfly effect. That stuff spreads like crazy, man. And when the PSA comes out and there's a bunch of red lines on that, put on your seller hat on. when you're doing the tours, right? And you're walking the property and maybe the seller's there, maybe it's just their leasing agents walking you through, talking good about the property. Oh, the annual flowers are beautiful. I love how you did this color. You manage it so well. Guess what? Property managers, leasing agents, maintenance guys, they're calling the seller. They're absolutely calling the seller. They're going to say, hey, I just did this tour with Beau. Beau brought the buyers through. Yeah, went fine. This is the maintenance guy talking. Went fine, everything good. You know, by the way, he loved how you did this and he loved the choice on that. Hey, remember when I told you about the air conditioning units? We should have them 2 feet off the ground. He loved that idea. Remember you fought me on that idea? He loved that idea. This stuff happens on a regular basis.
Yeah, I love it. So I think you put this somewhere in your book, but you almost describe how to win friends and influence people. You know, it's basically that's what it is applied to apartment investing. It is really what the secret sauce is trying to influence people for good, building a good solid reputation, and being like Mauricio, you know, being a closer at the end of the day. So now something that I do want to ask you, there's a lot of people in this group that I know are still looking for their very first deal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, I'm not going to call them complaints, but a lot of comments that I hear that piercing that broker veil as an upcoming, aspiring, you know, soon-to-be investor is difficult. So can you give some tips, number one, on how you view that upcoming aspiring investor and what they can do to be able to pierce that veil?
Yeah. So it's probably an unpopular or something you won't like that I say, but I'm gonna give it to you straight, and you've just gotta implement this. Anything over 10 units and particularly over 20 units, it's really hard to compete. You really don't have a chance unless you're hooking up with someone who does. You got to do that. You got to get with a mentor. You got to get with a partner. You got to get with someone who has units, who has equity, who has debt relationships, who has transactional history. Here's why. Let me just, again, put on your seller hat, put on your listing broker hat. That's what this is all about. It's empathy, right? So 8 offers come in on a 12-unit deal, right? And so what happens is every broker, when they're presenting offers to sellers, they do it in some format. I use Excel. Some guys use software packages, whatever it is. But essentially, we have the buyer, we have what their offer price is, offer price per unit, due diligence period, deposits. Are they getting financing or are they paying cash? And then we have a notes section, right? And the notes section is where I put in little notes like, you know, Austin has no experience whatsoever. They've never bought a property before. They don't own anything in the market. They're a total newbie. You know, I'm putting those things because that's important to my seller. I have a fiduciary responsibility by law to help my seller make the most educated guess and pick the best buyer at the best price and terms that's going to show up to closing, right? And so newbies don't have a chance because of those other 8 offers, probably 6 of them own several deals. They've already got financing approval or they're paying cash. They already own deals in the market. I've probably already transacted with 2 of them before, right? So it's really tough to compete against that. Why would I choose you as the newbie and put at risk my reputation with the seller when I can choose someone who I know is going to close on it? Even if you pay $200,000 more than them on a $3 million deal, it's too risky if you don't close. It's very hard to go back to other buyers if you don't close. So the number one piece of advice is you got to hook up with someone who already, even if you're totally educated, you've listened to a million seminars, gone to a million seminars, read all the books, you're ready to go. Maybe you've bought a couple duplexes in the past and now you're buying a 25-unit deal. Even all that, hook up with someone. Together, you're putting together a package when you submit an offer. So you're putting together a combined bio package. Hey, combined, we own this complex at this address, this complex at this address, this number of units. Here's our lenders. We've already been pre-approved. Here's 3 letters of recommendation from brokers. all this stuff goes into a package, and together you're doing it. So now you look much bigger than you are because together you're buying it. But any broker who's worth a grain of salt is going to ask you a few questions, and they're going to know right away that you ain't who they're choosing. And the seller is going to be the same thing, right? I mean, it's not like the sellers are, leave all this up to a broker. That's never the case. The seller makes the ultimate decision. Our job is to provide them with much data. And all sellers, any of you on the phone here would be the same way, are going to want to know from me about each of these people.
Yeah, so something that I didn't realize up front that it took me a long time to realize is a lot of times, when I was a new investor, I'd get on the phone with a broker and it felt like 20 questions, right? I mean, just question after question after question. And you made the point that, you ask a couple of questions, you can tell really quickly, whether somebody's going to be able to close or not. What are the dead giveaways when you talk to somebody, and what are you looking for in that first phone call?
I mean, I would, when you do an introduction, I wouldn't say that you're new. I mean, some people just like to be honest and so forth. I'd rather you call up and say, hey, I'm working with Brian Briscoe. He owns 13 complexes, or we own 13 complexes and 317 units, 3 of them in Jacksonville, 2 of them in Daytona. We're working together on trying to acquire 50 plus unit deals, blah, 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 right? So it's as a team. If you don't do that, I'm going to ask you, what assets do you own? Where do you own them? First of all, when you call up and I see your name, I already know you don't own anything in my markets, because I literally have every single human being that owns every complex in my markets. And so does every broker. The databases are phenomenal these days, and the subscription packages you have access to are phenomenal. So if you aren't in our database already, we already know you're probably not a player, or there's a chance you could own 5,000 units in California and you're buying your first deal coming in town. But even then, I probably already know you because you're big enough, right? You're probably already on my database in some way. But let's just say we get past that and we move forward a little bit. I'm asking you how many deals you own. Where does your equity come from? Who are you using for debt, right? And so when I ask those questions already, like, they're not going to know anybody who's in the commercial lending field who actually lends on stuff, or they're going to stutter, right? On the equity side, they're probably going to tell me that that they have some investors, or they have some capital they can get, they have access to. Like when I hear the word access to, a number of complexes, of course, they're going to come up short. So the other thing I always suggest is, it's not just establishing a person that you partner with, but actually formalizing this. I cannot tell you how many times in my career I've got, Nicole, who calls me up and she speaks a good game. Hey, I work with, we're a 5-member investment group. We buy this, we're looking for this kind of deal. Beau, we heard you're the broker for this area, blah, blah, blah. And then I send them a listing, a month later, and they're scrambling to put together the equity, or they even get to a letter of intent phase, and they've got a long due diligence period because they need the time to put together the equity. You got to go ahead and formalize a partnership. I would go as far as to put money in the bank. Okay. Because here's what happens is you got your 4 buddies that have been talking to you for 2 years about investing with you. Hey, let's buy a deal together. I'm ready. I want to retire. I'm so sick of this 9 to 5, blah, 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 blah. And then you get a 24 unit listing from Beau. You've done your quick underwriting in 3 or 4 days. You've done and toured it with me. Hey, this looks good. You've turned in the offer. You go back to your 4 buddies, and you're like, hey, it's $1 million deal. We got to come up with 300 grand. So I'm good for 100. How much you good for, Bob? Oh, well, my dad just got cancer. Or, my kids, my wife's talking about my kids going to private school. Every time people don't put their money where their mouth is, man, I'm telling you, all these people who are like, yeah, I'm good for this, I'm good for this, I'm good for that. Until you formalize it and you've got like an operating agreement put together, an LLC created, it doesn't have to be $3 million sitting in a bank account, but some money that, now they're invested. Once people have money in an entity, is, just the chemical makeup changes. They're now in it, right? You got to get that down, because the last thing you want to do as fast as deals happen is be scrambling to assemble equity during your due diligence period. Mm-hmm. And then by the 27th day of a 30-day due diligence, you come to me and you're like, yeah, like my one of my investment partners didn't come through. Like, you are so done in this business, right? Like, that's the worst joke that can happen, is you never even got to do due diligence, because you never even put the money into the LLC to even do inspections, for God's sakes, because you were spending 27 days putting together equity.
Yeah, that's an important thing. And incidentally, I think along the road, I made just about every mistake you said to avoid. Something I've talked about a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up, is just the focus on the capital raise, the focus on the money, and make sure you have the money available, because it's one of the worst things in the world to actually need money. And I think trying to get investors, if you come across as needy, it ends up being terrible. But lot of super good tips there, super good information. I think for some people, a lot of hard truths. And quite frankly, I would have benefited greatly had somebody like you explain this to me, 3 years ago when I was just starting out. Because I wasted a lot of time on the phone calls. Hey, my name's Brian. I'm brand new to this business and I'm trying to do X. Where's your equity coming from? What's that? Yeah. Who's your KP? What's that? I've said that before. I don't know what a KP is, but lot of good advice in there. I mean, end of the day, going to brokers, you got to have your ducks in a row, and they know how to sniff it out. It's their job to sniff it out. And, Beau, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys only get paid when you close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we talk a little
bit?
But
more importantly for us, it's, the better you can make us look as brokers, the more listings we get, and we want to reward you for rewarding us by bringing you more deals. It's a phenomenal cycle, right? I mean, that's all we want, is the more of a hero we are to our sellers, the more they're going to list with us, the more we're going to bring them to you, because you made us look like a hero. Yeah. That's all it is. It's just human motivation stuff.
That's a really good point. It's one of those, even if you're a closer, like Mauricio, you're Mauricio the closer, but you're a jackass or somebody that's terrible to work with. I mean, Beau, I'm sure you're not likely, they're not going to be the first call next time, even if they're going to close. They're still not going to be that first call. You're looking for the guys who are going to close and are easy to work with for you and for the seller, because that makes everybody's life a lot easier.
That's right.
Well, great. So let's see. Now, understand you have an educational site, Beau Knows, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll start opening the field to questions.
So I've got a YouTube channel called Beau Knows Multifamily, BEAU, Beau Knows Multifamily. And I've just started that in July last year. And I've got several playlists. I've got a playlist for buyers. I've got a playlist for beginners. I've got a playlist for sellers, one on how to do market analytics. And so, the videos are anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, and none of them are fluffy, crap videos. These are like, again, inside look, like, this is how you win a negotiation. This is how you submit PSAs. This is how you put together a bio package. This is what it looks like when a seller is presenting offer, or a buyer or a broker is presenting offers to a seller. Here's the inside talk that we have. I just had one about financing contingencies, and how if you have a financing contingency, you're never going to win a deal. All this stuff, like, it's all on there. It's all hard truth stuff. So I encourage you to subscribe to that, turn on the little notification bells. And I only put out one video a week. And then if you go to my website, it's a really good resource. I don't care what market any of you are in. If you go to my website, the reason you want to go to it's called beaubeery.com. My name's right there on my thing, how it's spelled. And so if you go to the resources button at the top of the website, you will see I have a bunch of templates, like letter of intent templates, just a bunch of other stuff. I've also got some popular reports I put out, but I have also a list of the markets I cover. And the reason you want to go to those markets is because you will notice if you, let's say you click on Jacksonville, there'll be a whole bunch of buttons and market reports on Jacksonville that you need to master for your market. If you can master everything I have on my website for any specific market, for your market, that's one big advantage you will have when the offers come out. So the reason I told you that there's 13 offers in 10 days is, number one, buyers are getting called before the deals are coming to market. But number two, these guys know every market metric like the back of their hands. You need to know exactly what cap rates are, what you should be buying assets for, what the rents can be after renovations, what the renovation costs are, who the top employers are, what the absorption is, what average rents are for 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, what deals close for within each submarket, like all the stuff that's on my website. Just click on each of those buttons, see the kind of stuff that I have, and then try to find that information for your markets. And when you're finding it, I would try to get as much of from brokers and broker websites as you can, because it's long and tedious to do it yourself. But you want to have encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. I should be able to call you on whatever your favorite market is and never stump you on some of the stuff that's in there. I'm a huge data nerd. That's my competitive advantage as a broker. That's what I'm known for, is my information. I'm able to quote all kinds of stats because I've created a database of every asset in my market, and I have it tracked by everything you can think of physically. The age, number of units, bedrooms, when it was built, who bought it, what they paid for it, type of roof, type of construction, whether it's market rate or student, all kinds of stuff. And instantaneously, I can put together stats. If you can create a database like that and track the stuff and track every closing in your market, every month you need to go into your property appraiser website, export all the closings, track all the information. That's how these guys get really, really good at stuff. And start tracking who the buyers and sellers are, who the movers and shakers are. Like that's really interesting information as well.
Yeah, a lot of gold nuggets there. I mean, from an underwriting perspective and from an acquisitions perspective, the better you know your market, the better you know the stats, the better you know what everything else is closing, the better you're going to recognize a good deal when it comes in front of you. If you have to do a lot of work just to figure out what the market dynamics are when you get that deal sent to you, you're already behind the game. But lot of good information there. Incidentally, I dropped the link to beaubeery.com in the chat. I also dropped the link to amazon.com to pick up the book from Beau. That said, let's open the field to questions. And while we're waiting for questions, I just want to say thank you very much, Beau, for coming on today. It's been amazing having you, and let's see if we can get some questions answered.
Sounds good.
All right, James, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Beau, thanks very much for your time. Before I ask my question, I just want to, I heard you say one time on a previous call, something that really stuck with me about reputation, about how, if you have a good reputation, a dozen people will talk about you. Mm-hmm. And if you have a bad reputation, hundreds of people will talk about you.
Damn
and
straight.
that really hit home, and I appreciate that piece there. My question is, so I'm a new investor and I'm putting together a team of that includes experienced investors, and I'm reaching out to brokers for opportunities. Am I as a new investor still sticking out as a new investor in that partnership? And do brokers look at that and say, okay, this guy is new but he's partnered? How does that weigh in? Like,
it's all how you present yourself. I mean, like, again, I would present yourself as a company, like right. The 5 of you. I mean, I would try to formulate it as much as possible. I don't know if you're a website guy, but like creating a website and putting bios on there. At minimum, creating a PDF bio package, which each of your profile pictures. And if you haven't been full-time in multifamily, just put what your career is, maybe how it relates. Like you're an attorney, and so your analytical skills or whatever it is. Just have bios on there. a list of all the assets owned by everyone on the team, right? So name of complex, address, number of units. Actually write the stuff out. Have a little picture there or something like that. And then any kind of records, even if these guys don't have letter of recommendation yet from lenders and brokers, I would tell your partners to go back and get them. Like they're that important, because I told you how small of a world this is, right? And if you guys turn in an offer with like 2 lenders and 2 brokers you've done deals with who have said good things about you, very high likelihood that seller knows those people. And it's almost impossible that I don't know them, right? And so to be able to call those people is super important. Even if I don't even know the broker on, let's say you're from a different market and you're investing in Florida and I don't know that broker, we still have we're in a fraternity or a sorority, right? Like depending on who you are, I'm going to call them up and hey, we're going to, hey, isn't it a crazy market? Yeah. I'm a multifamily broker in Florida. Oh yeah, I'm one in Texas. Yeah. How's your market? So we would be able to build rapport. We start talking to each other, and then we get into business. So, hey, James, turn in an offer, tell me how it was on, Palm Terrace Apartments over in Austin, Texas. Tell me how it really was, right? And so we get to talking, and we just spill the beans, right? Like we have an honest conversation. And so the recommendations are the biggest ones at all. If you've got someone on that team who has substantial financials, it doesn't have to be in the actual package, but like be ready to produce that. You can cross through social security numbers and stuff like that. But like if someone's got like a big ass bank account, that's helpful sometimes, right? Next level would be like a website. Okay. Even though anyone can create a website, it still looks professional to have all that stuff put together. You're competing, right? This is a competition. This is literally like, this is a sexy competition. Who's the sexiest, right? And offers are important, but then next is the sexiness of how likelihood that guy is going to close. That's what this is all about. Who's going to show up to closing? And sellers will actually give up price for someone who's sexy, someone who's going to close. While I'm on this topic, I think there's one that I just kind of a tip I really want to pass along. It's another huge thing I see people losing deals on, and that is offer prices and people get super analytical and scholastic on metrics in like first year financials. So I just did a video on this a few weeks ago. If you're on my channel, I think it's like 5 tips to win deals or something like that. But what I see over and over again is I see people getting into like a garage sale mentality on their offers. They call up the broker during offers or doing best and finals and like, hey, Beau, so where do I need to be? What's going to win it? Where do I need to be? Right. And what they're really saying is, what Brian Williams is really saying is, hey, Beau, what's the minimum offer I can get in there and win the deal, right? Which is the worst question you can ask. It's the dumbest question. You don't want to ask that. The guys I see smash it every time. Almost always it's an elite investor, but it's the guy who comes in there and just absolutely slams down the most insane price, the most insane terms, that's so much better than everybody else. And it leaves the broker and the seller where you got to choose that guy. Now, what these elite guys are doing is they're going into pro formas and they're not trying to figure out what the minimum number is to win the deal, because they know if they get second place, they don't get jack shit. Nobody's giving you a check. Nobody's coming to Charles and he's like, Charles, hey, so great job on your bio package. Your letter of intent was fantastic. I love your letter of recommendation, blah, blah, blah. Listen, you got second place. Here's $100,000 because you were so good. No one's going to do that, right? There is no second place in this game. All right. So you got to bring it. So the guys who win it, what they're doing is they're only competing against themselves. They're going in their financials and they're looking at the asset as a whole, and they're looking 5 years down the road and they're saying, okay, this thing is listed at $10 million. I'm at 10.2 already. I'm at best and final. What do I think would kill this thing? What if I came in at 10.9? Let me plug in 10.9. All right, so if I came in at 10.9, all right, and rents went up at 3%. Okay, so in 5 years at 10.9, all right, that definitely eats into my returns, but I can sell this for 13. Am I good with $2.1 million? All That takes me from a 21% IRR to a 16, not as good, but definitely still makes my hurdles, right? Okay, I'm going to come in at 10.9. I'm going to smash this shit. And he turns in 10.9. And what happens is I get that offer in my email and I'm like, oh my God, this dude killed it. Let me forward this to my cell. I just can't wait. I can't wait. Bob, did you look at your email? Woo! Did I tell you? I told you I was going to bring it. Did I tell you I was going to bring it? All right. Right. And that guy wins. Right. That's how these guys are winning. They're competing against only themselves because they don't care if they paid more than they had to win it. Big difference. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, that guy might have been able to pay 10.5 and win it, and he just paid 400 grand more, but he could have lost the deal, and there ain't no second place. And 10.9 brought him a 16% IRR, which he was fine with, right? And this game is all about how big and sexy you can get. The people who own the most number of units and get bigger and bigger and perform with integrity and gentlemanlike and gentlewomanlike manners, they become more and more difficult to compete against. This ain't a game about finding one asset and doing a 28% IRR to brag to your friends. It's about building a huge portfolio of cash flow. Because what happens is the bigger your portfolio gets, the more cash flow you get. As you pay down the debt, now your debt ratio as a portfolio gets smaller. That allows you to get way more aggressive on deals. So the guy who sees the 4.1 cap rate, but it's in a phenomenal location in the pathway of growth, and that 4.1 can become 6 in year 3 or 4, everyone else can look at 4.1 and they're like, I'm basically going to be like breaking even or having a negative cash flow. I can't pay that. This guy comes in and smashes it because he's built a portfolio and his global cash flow is supporting iffy projects in years 1 and 2. So the rich get richer and they get bigger and bigger. And that's how this stuff works, right? So I would hugely encourage you, do not compete against the buyers. You're competing against yourself. And if you lose the deal, if you're mad because you lost the deal, you did it wrong. You want to feel like the guy who won the deal is a flippin' idiot. You understand? Like you want to feel like, how in the hell did that guy, how is he going to make that work? That doesn't make any sense. 10.9, that's ridiculous. Hey, he can have it. I'm good. I'm good. I didn't need that property, right? That's how you want to feel. If you hear that he paid 10.9 and you went from the broker after it closed, the broker sent out a, just sold, and you hear it went for 10.9 and you were at 10.75 and you were like, you went back in your pro forma and you were, shit, I'd have done 10,950,000 or 11, right? And then you call up the broker and you're like, Beau, like, dude, like, why didn't you come back to me? I would have probably done that. I'd have been like, give me a break. Like that's just not going to happen, right? If you're true to it and by the way, when you smash it and you hit a home run on it, I'm in love with you. I'm bringing you the next deal, right? Because you just allowed me to go, Bob, look at your email, dude. Look at the email. Did you see that price? That is crazy, right? When you allow me to do that, I want to bring you more deals. That's how it works.
So what you're saying in a way, I mean, I've heard a lot of people, and we've done this, we're guilty of it before, if you want to end at, 10.9, a lot of people I think will intentionally put a lower offer in. Are you suggesting we start with our best and final? Is that what it sounds like?
No. Great question. So yeah, on your initial offer needs to be strong enough where you're going to make best and final, right? So in other words, if the ask price is $10 million and you can pay 10.5, but the ask is 10 million, I'd come in at 9.8, 9.9, 10 million, somewhere in there, maybe 10.1, whatever it is that you don't have any question at all that you're not going to make it, right? And run that stuff by the broker. Like, come to the broker and be like, wait till the last couple of days before offers are due. And you call the broker and you're like, hey, where are offers? What are you seeing so far? And the broker will say, hey, you're going to need to be at least 10, 05, somewhere in there. Okay, cool. I'll come in at 10-1 because I know I'm going to pay 10-5. That'll get me the best and final. When you go to best and final, that's when you're trying to smash it. You want to punch someone in the face over this thing.
All right, good negotiating tips. I mean, we've definitely lost some, the exactly like you say, where we put a price in like, hey, this is the max we'll offer, and we completely missed out on it because we didn't go high enough on our initial. But
and the reason you want to leave a little bit of room on the best and final is because, again, this is, put on your seller hat and your broker hat. Let's say you came in at 10-4 on that $10 million ask and you just killed it. That's your absolute max. You can't go anywhere else, right? So all the other offers might have been between 10 and 10-2. You came at 10-4. Now it's time for best and final, right? And so I come back to you, Mr. 10.4, and I say, hey, best and final time. Best and finals are due on Friday. And you say to me, hey, dude, like I brought it all. I can't move anywhere, right? And then everyone else went from 10-2 to 10-4, 10-5, 10-450, whatever it is. Even if they were pretty close and you just didn't move, that shows an unwillingness to be flexible. That means you're not going to be flexible during due diligence. You're not going to be flexible if closing period has to be moved around. You're not going to be flexible if something comes up during due diligence. To a seller, it says, hey, this guy is kind of a prick. Like he didn't budge. Like he was just kind of like, nah, right? Even though that may not be who you are at all, that's just what it says. Because remember, the seller doesn't get to talk to you. He doesn't get to see your face and and be in front of you over lunch and get to know you and all that, right? It's just kind of like, oh, this guy didn't move. Right. And so if anyone else is really close to you, I'm going to choose the guy who moved. Right. And it shows motivation. Oh, that guy went from 10-1 to 10-4. All right. This guy's a player.
Good enough. Got another question pop in. Does asking the broker whisper price on an unpriced property give you a bad impression in any way?
No, not at all. I mean, first of all, I'm annoyed by any listing that doesn't have either an ask price or a broker guidance, right? Like I actually just did a study on LinkedIn, which I just published on my website. I think if you go to popular reports or something like that, it's on there. It's a LinkedIn poll I did. And I think I had almost 300 responses. I asked investors, what method of marketing brings the highest price for the seller? A, giving no price and no guidance and no whisper whatsoever. B, state a price. Or C, not stating a price, but broker giving guidance. And 97% said give an ask price or broker guidance, right? So not giving any price or guidance at all is the dumbest thing you can do for a seller. It's the dumbest thing a seller can do. It's the dumbest thing a broker can do for a seller. Now, no broker would ever want to do that. It's usually an uninformed seller that thinks by not giving any guidance at all that some guy on a $10 million list price is all of a sudden going to come, or excuse me, that on a property that he thinks is worth 10 million, he thinks some buyer is going to come in at 13. It's never happened in the history of the universe. In fact, what happens is buyers only protect themselves and they shoot as low as they can for fear they're going to come in too high, right? So yes, absolutely ask for a whisper price from brokers. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right, awesome. Now,
and by the way, just so you know, this is super important. A whisper price is not the win price. A whisper price is not the win price. A whisper price is just the absolute minimum at which the broker believes that that price, you will be respectable, you will be considered. But understand, when you ask him for the whisper, there are 8 other people asking for the whisper, and he's saying the same thing, and each of them are going to interpret that differently, and the big guys are going to smash the whisper, right? If the whisper is 10-1, they're going to come in at 10-6 or whatever it is. The whisper is just the minimum at which you don't look like an idiot. That's all that is.
All right, got it, got it. Now, one question I've got for you. I think right now a lot of people are talking hard money. I was talking to another guy who's doing what we're doing too, and first question he asked me, he's like, "Hey, are you guys putting hard money on deals right now? What do you think about hard money, and is the market such that you have to do it?"
I tell you, it is probably the number one like chest flexing, gonna win it. Like it's the top competitive thing you can do. Listen, I don't advocate for it. I will say I love it as a broker because I know I've got someone who's committed and someone who's going to close on this. I don't advocate for it, but if you know your market like the back of your hand, like I'm telling you to do, if you know this asset, you've walked it, you've brought your staff, you brought your property manager with you, your leasing agent, your contractor, you did the initial walkthrough, you've gotten to know the asset like the back of your hand, and you can't fathom other than, listen, hard money is usually always contingent on clean survey and title, right? And environmental. So that's usually always the case. No one just goes hard, period. That never happens. Hard day one is always contingent on survey, title, and phase one. So all you now have to worry about is there a gremlin in the plumbing, electrical, whatever the case may be. It's a chiller system on a 10-story building, all those things. But most of that stuff you can get pretty comfortable with early on during the walkthroughs, right? So to answer your question that is even better than slamming the price sometimes, because hard money day one can buy you price. I'll give you a perfect example. I just did a deal. Actually, it was a little over 100 unit deal in Gainesville where the guy came in with a good price, but there were others who matched it or were higher. But he put down a substantial deposit day one, no contingencies other than the three that we mentioned, and it was just like instantaneous. That's our guy. Period. First of all, he's a strong buyer, owns assets. I had never transacted with him before. But the second thing that won it for him, in addition to hard money and a good price, was I knew a broker that he listed as a letter of recommendation. I called that broker in Jacksonville, John, and we know each other. And he's like, yeah, he's like, dude, he said, this guy, one of my concerns was the guy never toured the asset, which I encourage you all have to do during the bid process. He never toured the asset. That was a big concern of mine. I don't like that. I don't like my sellers going to contract with someone who hasn't even bid on the property. So when I asked the broker, he's like, dude, John said, he's like, Beau, he's like, I never even met the guy. He turns over everything to his people. His people do it all. And we close, and he does it over and over again. He's like, I still haven't met him, and I've done 2 deals with him. Don't know who he is. Don't know what he looks like. He just entrusts his people. And when I talk to his people, he's like, yeah, he's like, it makes us super nervous because he never even sets foot on these properties, but he just entrusts us. So that made me feel comfortable, and we chose the guy.
Right. Okay. So
anyway, let me just end on the hard money thing. The hard money thing is, obviously for new people, I can't encourage that. It's probably not a good idea unless maybe you've owned that asset before, or you own 2 other quads in the same subdivision and you just know that area like the back of your hand. That's a great way to win deals. But you got to know your stuff. This guy has contractors on his crew. He knows the construction business. He knows any kind of gremlin that's left over, he can handle it. Right.
Okay, good. Now, a very, very related question. He talks about, this is from Ken Hines, asking about, are there other terms that are also important, like due diligence period, et cetera? He also put hard money. I think he typed the question right as I was asking it, but yeah. Any other terms that would make you competitive?
Yeah, financing contingencies are an absolute no-go. Just can't happen. You're not going to win deals. You ain't buying a house, okay? You ain't buying the $300,000 single family house, and you're filling out, hey, this deal is contingent on a 30-year mortgage at 3.2%, blah, blah, blah. Ain't going to happen in this world. I don't care if you're buying 12 units, 20 units, 150 units, 400 units. Everyone who wins every deal does not, they basically it's no financing contingency. Now, listen, all of them are getting debt. Okay. And I have a video about this on my YouTube channel as well. I just did in the last couple of weeks. All of them get debt. They're just not making the deal contingent on debt. And the way that happens is they've developed relationships with lenders to the point where the lenders are comfortable with the way they underwrite. The buyer is comfortable with the way the lender underwrites. They are comfortable with each other's assets. The buyer is comfortable with the turnaround time of the lender. All those things come to factor. But I'm telling you, any deal that's worth a crap, unless it's some super hairy deal, I'd have to think a little bit on what the deal is. But unless it's something where the seller knows this is going to be a tough one to finance, like buying in HOAs, a lot of lenders don't like. But there's also a lot of lenders that do that, and then still most guys who win those deals don't put down financing contingencies because they found lenders who will lend in HOAs. Meaning, if you're buying like 8 quadruplexes in an HOA, a lot of lenders don't like that, but most people who win it still don't put financing contingencies. So I would encourage you also, when you leave this call, get at least 3 lenders that you're super tight with. Take them to lunch, get to know them. Go to their luncheons that they have when they bring in a speaker. Talk good about them. Subscribe to their newsletters. Do whatever you can. I would do a local person, almost like credit unions are good for smaller assets because a lot of those guys will do 30-year debt. Banks pretty much suck. Banks are usually just 20 and 25-year ammos. And I'm telling you right now, you can't make any deals work these days on less than a 30-year ammo. It's very, very difficult. And I would get with a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker is someone who has access to everybody and everything, right? I'm happy to suggest some guys to you who do stuff all over, Florida and the Southeast. If you want, just email me or whatever. But I would kind of have those tiers, and I would actually have 2 or 3 mortgage brokers if you can, and just find out from them what do they need from you so that they can act fast for you, so that they're comfortable with you. Ask them how they underwrite. Ask them what they're seeing. Get to know these guys. You need to be networking with these guys. Like I'm telling you, network with the brokers in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've had one credit union that's given us 4 loans. They're on loan number 5 right now. And I'll tell you what, the process is so much easier for loan number 5 than it is for loan number 1.
And he's got confidence in you. He probably feels listen, I've got, most guys who are really good at this, the bankers are calling them and saying, dude, bring me something. We just want to throw you money. We believe in you. We know you know what you're doing. Here's the money, right? That's what you want.
Yeah, that's the ticket right there. You want brokers sending you stuff and say, hey, I want you to buy this, and lenders saying, here's my money, take it, go buy something. All right, well, we're about at the end of the time we have allocated to this. A couple questions still left, but I think most of them he has answered in one way, shape, or form throughout the recording. But Beau, thank you so much for doing this today. Really appreciate your time. I learned a lot. I'm going to look at this recording myself. And incidentally, for anybody involved, this is going to go on our YouTube channel a day after tomorrow. And we'll send out a link for you guys to access it. But Beau, once again, thank you so much for coming on. I very much appreciate your time today.
No problem, man. I just when we asked that last question, Jack asked about, is it best to stay on the sideline? I hear this from some people sometimes. It's the worst thing you can do. Never be on the sideline. When you're on the sideline, you're dead to everybody. Someone who's on the sideline is not a player. It's not someone who any brokers ever want to bring deals to. It's not someone who any sellers want to do deals with. And you have a 0% chance of ever doing a deal. You need to be vigilant constantly. Even if it takes underwriting 120 deals straight and you never win the deal. I know it's frustrating, but underwriting 120 deals and not buying them is freaking normal. It's normal, right? But you have to be vigilant. If I feel like or hear that you're sitting on the sideline, like it's literally just a check mark on my CRM, boop, no more listings. I don't want to deal with a guy who thinks like that. That's ridiculous.
Got it. And Esty had a good question. Do you invest yourself?
Never in multifamily. It's a huge conflict of interest. I know a lot of brokers do it. There's a couple of schools of thought. Some investors think, hey, I want to work with a broker who only, who buys assets as well. I think it's a huge conflict of interest. I can go through all kinds of stories on why it's the worst thing you can do. I only buy industrial and office. I wish I could buy multifamily, but it just gets you in trouble. A couple of examples is I find a 20-unit deal. I bring it to Kenneth, and Kenneth knows I've bought assets in the past. What's Kenneth's going to ask me?
Why aren't you taking?
Hey, Beau, how come you're not buying it?
Yeah.
Right. And then and then what happens about partnering? Like I'd ask about Beau, hey, why don't you buy with me? Like, why don't you partner with me? Okay. Well, if I partner with you, other buyers are going to find out, because good buyers they're looking up who the buyers and sellers are. And they're going to find the LLC, and they're going to look up the LLC, and they're going to see Beau Beery on there. Ah, Beau's buying with Jeff. Okay. Not listing anything with this guy, right? He's my competition now, right? So there's no way any broker can possibly do things and it make sense long term. I just don't see it.
All right, got it. Well, hey, once again, thanks so much for your time.
Hey guys.
We're going to transition to networking. Beau, if you want to stay for networking, you're welcome to. If you want to cut and run, still thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all of the gold nuggets you've given us today. So
I'm getting on the swimming Olympics with my wife. We got them all recorded, and I can't wait to get over there.
Yeah, I was a competitive swimmer once upon a time, and I love watching.
Oh, sweet.
It. So, well, Beau, thank you again, and enjoy the trials.
No problem, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to, on my website or find my contact information, reach out to me. Happy to give you any kind of feedback I can.
All right. Thanks a lot.
See ya.
All right. And I'm getting